say we as the planning and zoning, is to take up those items so that when you all meet, you're not sitting here for 4 or 5 hours trying to figure everything out, right? So you have a lot of other stuff that's getting ready to come down the pike. You got people that are they're gonna scrape their houses and they're gonna try to build a McMansion on a postage stamp. And then you're gonna get guys like me that are downriver that are gonna sue you over it because you don't have a drainage plan. And you're funneling all of that water down onto my property and damaging my property. So that's what the planning and zoning is supposed to take up, is to look at all that. Impervious cover, you know, just all those items, and that's what we look at. And so
there can be other priorities for the community. Like, for example, we're getting more and more restaurants here, right? A couple in the commercial space, but we also get trucks. Is there anything that says they can't drop their grease trap right there on the ground? Right now, there's not, fortunately.
Or where you can have a food truck, or where you can even have a food truck.
Yeah, and that STRs was a hot topic at one point, and then it, you know, had some state stuff going on that we wanted to just put that on rest. But again, there's unaddressed items, and so the priorities can either come from the council, that you hear of complaints, or just imagine that there would be complaints, or if not, we'll work through and try to see if we can identify things that we should be addressing based around what's going on in our community and what's going on in other communities around us. And that's what we do. We primarily do the research to pull that information. And so one of the first things we wanted to do was to reintroduce that same statute with maybe almost no changes or very few changes that we proposed before, because I still think it's applicable. And it corrects a number of things in our current ordinance.
Which statute? I'm sorry.
The ordinances that we have, we tried to propose something in, I think, May or June of last year.
Yeah, there seemed to be some.
Sorry.
So on the code enforcement side, my understanding too, P&Z, is if a resident wants to come to do a modification to an ordinance, what I've been used to is they go to P&Z investigates it, and then brings it to the council for a final decision. So that takes you out of the loop of having to listen to all the complaints. You got a committee here, they can take, I know the elevation issues are a big thing for the community. So they sort through all that stuff, bring recommendations to the council. Am I correct?
Yeah.
No, that's
so it's a vital part of your community for future too.
Absolutely.
Even with if you build out completely, still people are going to want to do remodeling.
That's what I said, scraping the little house off and
Yeah.
So
and go on as big as they can go.
ordinances, that's that they had to have a floodplain study and all that, the drainage study. So when that.
Well, they tried, they actually,
Because we don't currently have.
part of what they recommended, part of what the P&Z recommended in their minutes was primarily about 45% lot coverage. And if it's greater than 50%, it requires a variance. And part of what the P&Z wanted to add was if that variance is greater than 51%, it requires a drainage study. It also included language on impervious cover, and that's kind of when the bomb blew up. I went back through my notes to try to figure out where did all of this fall apart.
Right.
Like,
We're supposed to be team.
well, we
No, totally.
No, hold on.
We work together. That's the whole idea.
Here's the thing. Here's the
Yeah,
thing.
which is not always going to be completely aligned, right?
Well, but
You know,
here's the thing from my
the impervious
understanding.
coverage, I was at that meeting, and I was sitting there watching, and some people on board had different opinions than you guys, and
Well, but
that's just gonna happen.
here's part of where I think the train derailed. Was the P&Z is an independent body that's doing research, that spends months researching what they bring to us through not only a public hearing, then council for us to change that variance. And so No, I mean, we can, yes, and it's also our right to deny and disagree with it.
Absolutely.
However, when that derailed at that point, because of the impervious cover and the lot coverage and wanting to stay with that, we as council really need to listen, because part of our action mitigation plan on our Firewise is that we're going to adopt regulations to limit the amount of impervious cover in conjunction with new developments. So they are following the rules. Here we're wanting to get rid of, because from what I can figure out, when I look through the minutes of
What
what,
do you mean we wanting to get rid of?
well, in your text to Steve that he read at an open meeting, it's apparent you want to get rid of the lot coverage. No, it's apparent you want, because you even state in there.
I think
And
it's,
if they couldn't work with you as a team, then you just get rid of them. And you even state in your text to him that you'll just wait until you get 3 new council members on, and then we'll deal with it then.
I texted you that, Stu.
He read it in an open
I
meeting.
provided the text communications between you
Here's
and
what it
Dave
says.
as
says-
requested. You should
it
all have a
says-
copy.
This was on September 20th, 2023. Your text to Steve that he read in an open meeting.
Yeah.
Did you talk with Kurt as we spoke? If the P&Z has an issue with working with council, it doesn't make sense for that team to waste their energy volunteering, and we can just do away with the P&Z. So in September 20th, you're threatening them to do away with them if they don't agree with you.
There's no threat.
That is a threat. And then down here, it says, honestly, we need to talk, and I suggest putting it on the agenda when we get the 3 new members. And then here we are talking about possible dissolution of them.
But
If you- but hold on, hold on, I'm not
No,
before
you're
I-
interrupting everyone.
I have a
You have been
right.
interrupting everyone, and it's quite apparent that you are painting a picture that, and I apologize, if that came off as a threat, there is absolutely zero threat, right? And in that context, I was mayor pro tem with a vote going, there is a lot of history that says we aren't working together. And I go, what are we doing?
But they are an
We
independent
talk.
body to come to us with recommendations, and we either, I don't know how we all of a sudden, now we're dictating to them what they're gonna do. One of the things that in their minutes, besides that, they wanted to look at the single family, to start adding single family into their review for building approval. But again, all of these things are STR or the lot coverage, all of these, the SF1, SF2, consolidation, building plan, to start reviewing the building plans before they come to us for a variance. I think that would stop a lot of the builders. And really, your point was a lot has come up about lot coverage, that people want to get rid of the lot coverage. That's in
I know I would, on my lot.
But this isn't about personal. This is not about our
I'm
personal
a resident, I'm
needs.
just saying, like.
But I'm saying, as I mentioned to you once before in a meeting, in a conversation, all of us live downhill from someone. All of us are downhill from someone, and that water is coming down and needs a path. And in your email to him, you're talking about lot coverage and just getting away with it, like going away with it, and really, again, it's one builder that's shown up a couple of times to get the variances. And
And it's not-
Guys, I'm gonna ask you a quick question. Do you think part of your role could be disbanded with ordinance change?
Our role could be what, disbanded?
Yeah, with
Ordinance?
ordinance change. I'm asking a question, I'm asking
I don't think so.
So with like lot coverage per se, or the drainage, so I texted stated 51% needs a drainage study, right? So if we implemented that and those things were taken care of, that lightens your load per se, right? So,
Those pieces, and there's always other ones coming up. And so you really want to have a team that can actually do the work when something does come up.
But
Otherwise you're living with an open Wild West, we typically refer to kind of scenario.
So pre-P and Z,
Yeah,
it was the Wild West.
It was a comprehensive.
We had
plan.
ACC that had
So
ACC.
This is what I was
Follow
told.
rules.
So here's what I was told by a person that's probably been here longer than anybody, was the ACC had
Full.
had all the authority.
Right?
So if you were gonna build a house, right, you had to erect literally a frame out of 2x4s,
Sure.
so everybody could see what you were getting ready to do. And if it fell within the guidelines, great, you could probably wouldn't have any issues. But if it was out of the guidelines, the ACC actually had the power to shoot that down. And apparently, the way it was explained to me was all that authority got taken away from them.
Correct.
And the ACC operates independently. If the ACC shoots something down, you guys will never even see it, right? It's not coming.
How did it get taken away from them?
That,
And who ended up inheriting that responsibility?
well, I think it just kind of did, from my understanding, is that responsibility would technically still be there. It just never got exercised anymore. It was, and Vicki, you probably know better than any of us who've been here long.
certainly, before 2005, right, I think we were at Village in 2005, Vicki? And before that point, it was only the POA. And so they created their own, essentially,
Yeah, 'cause y'all
ACC
didn't
to be a.
exist.
Right, and then if you had stated,
Right.
you live downhill, everything runs down on your property, you make mansions, obviously you have some experience with the drainage issues.
Well, I do, because I mean.
So is that like a personal,
It's not
agenda
personal
you?
for me, because, I mean,
Because of where your house is located, because obviously drainage is not an issue for me, it will never be an issue for me, I live at the top of the hill.
there you go.
Some of it is the high.
You know what
So-
I'm saying? So like,
Right.
just her point, I just want to make sure everybody's aligned, right?
Yeah.
So,
No, and that's
we
exactly.
don't want to make rules based on one, we want to make rules based on the
Exactly.
community,
That's
right?
what we should do.
First of all, I spent 11 years in the military. I served nobody
Yeah.
other than the public, right? So I don't serve myself.
Not questioning that, just asking.
So to answer your question is, it is, the things that we should do, we should never get on anything to serve yourself,
Right.
ever, right? And I've been there, I've been the president of POAs, I've done it all. I've lived everywhere in this country you can possibly live, and I've served everywhere I've been. It's always, you always look out for the best interest of the community,
Correct.
everybody. Which means that everybody below your house is affected by what you do. So you need to be concerned with every single person that you've affected.
Agreed.
Now, I don't, so that's where, I mean, like my neighbor Jeff Page, he owns an underground utility company. That's what he does. He puts them in, like Tercera and stuff like that. I told Jeff, I said, you want to get rid of impervious cover? Man, great. Get Jeff in there. Let's put in an actual true drainage system in this place. Let's route the water where it's supposed to be, and then absolutely, then get rid of your impervious cover and build whatever the heck you want to do. But until you get to that point, right, you now have a whole bigger problem. And as people continue to do whatever it is that they're doing, right, that obviously it needs to be addressed. So whoever came up, and I dealt with this when I was with the water district, over at District 17, that was a big thing, impervious cover. I mean, that is a huge thing of where water goes,
Yes.
right? Because obviously, you can, if you go over there and look at the front of Rough Hollow where their flags fly, at the entrance, and you look at those three houses, go look at, and the same with California right now. You got $100 million houses getting ready to slide off into the ocean.
So that one too.
Yeah, and it's because they have no control over their water, where it's going, what it's doing and stuff. So the only thing we have to be able to do is to look at things like you know, okay, you wanna build a house, that's great, let's take a look and see what it's gonna do, how it's gonna affect everybody around you, right? And apparently my neighbors across from me have had a big issue with this, you know, between the two of them, and I'm not involved in that, but it turns into, you know, somebody wants a drainage study, okay, let's look at a drainage study.
Yeah,
Let's
So
see
you guys do the drainage study, the P and Z does, right?
No.
We did not, it would be, if we look, if it was something where they came in and they said, hey, we wanna build, whatever, like you were talking about your place, and you said, look, I wanna, whatever, my lot's 100 by 100, now I wanna build 90 by 90, I wanna go out, so you've only got, obviously, you're over the 45 or 50% of the variance, right? Then at that point, you'd have to say, okay, you know, we need to really look at where's your water going? It'd be different if we were in the Midwest somewhere and the water actually drained into the ground, you know, but we're on a rock.
Correct.
And so the water goes